y'all, I'm Laura Richardson with Relevate, and we're bringing you another episode of I'm Moving to North Carolina and Now What? Today's topic is a little tough, and that is you want to void your contract, meaning you're already under contract and you've decided that this is not the right opportunity for you. Today's episode is going to be coming from the perspective of the buyer. Keep in mind, if you were the seller, it's a little bit tougher to kind of back out of a real estate contract here in North Carolina. Oftentimes you are going to wind up in breach. So that's something you want to talk through with a real estate attorney and your agent just to make sure you understand what you're doing before you try to void anything. So if you're a buyer, one of the first things that I recommend doing is take a step back and evaluate, why are you considering this? And the reason for that is buying and selling a home is overwhelming. It is definitely a very stressful time period. I would love to say that it's rainbows, puppies, and sunshine all the time, and that it's the easiest thing you'll ever do. That would be a lie. It is definitely one of the toughest things you'll go through, and part of that is just because of the rapid fire of making decisions, having information, the fact that no experience is the same. I mean, it's a lot like parenthood, to be honest with you. You can talk to somebody about their experience, and while it can be relatable, it's still not going to be the exact same experience that you have. So you just want to be mindful of that and understand it is going to feel like you're drinking from a fire hose and that you're getting hit in the face with news and info constantly. So if that's what's causing your stress and it's not actually the house itself, just remember this is a fleeting moment in time. It's typically about 30 days and then it's done. However, if there's a legitimate reason, like for example, you are not down with having mold in your house and mold was discovered, that might be a reason that you walk away. Again, everybody's tolerance level is different on each thing. So if it's something that's pretty substantial and it's not something that you're able to change, then let's talk through what you potentially could lose if you're going to void that contract. So one of the first things is you've typically gotten an appraisal right when you went under contract. Usually if somebody is considering backing out of a contract, it's not like the day after they go under contract. It's usually a little further down the line. So at that point, the appraisal has usually been paid for, ordered, could have already happened. So just know that few hundreds of dollars that you've already paid is now gone. The second thing is you may have already ordered a survey. So surveys have to be paid about 50% up front, with the remainder being paid at closing. If the survey's already been done though, you still owe the full amount regardless of when you breach your contract. So it's really important that you understand that even if something hasn't technically been paid for, it still might be owed at the end. Another thing is all the inspection costs. So you may have, in order to come to this conclusion that you need to back away, you may have had multiple rounds of inspections, everything from your general inspector to, let's say, a specific plumber, or getting a septic inspection, or some of these things that are very specific to certain properties. Every single one of these costs money, and the seller is under no obligation to pay you back for these inspections should you choose to walk away. Two bigger deposits and expenses are the due diligence deposit and earnest money. So when you go under contract here in North Carolina, those are two different fees that you have to pay as soon as you go under contract. Due diligence is held in the seller's account, while earnest is typically held in a trust account by either the attorney or one of the firms involved. With that being said, due diligence in our market can be a very sizable deposit. And if you choose to walk away by the end of your due diligence period from the house, the seller gets to keep that money free and clear. So it's kind of one of those things where you have to outweigh, is the reason that I'm walking away of the same value or importance as the amount of money that I've put on the line? When it comes to the earnest deposit, it basically doesn't come into play until the end of that due diligence period. Now, one of the little tricky things that often people forget about is that earnest has to be agreed for release, meaning both buyer and seller have to agree for that earnest money to get released back to the buyer. Usually the expectation is if the buyer has said, hey, I'm not going to proceed before due diligence ends, usually the earnest money, it's kind of a given that it's going to be released. But on occasion, you have a seller that's a stickler and you could end up in a little bit of a situation where that money gets stuck in a trust account and does not get released back to you. The last thing is loss on any vendors that maybe you proactively scheduled some on-site visits for. These are not inspections. I'm talking about like any work-related items. For example, you have a flooring company that's coming in and maybe they charge you a site visit in order to do their quote and analysis. That again would be money that you would be out if you chose to walk away from the contract. So just remember, while it's a big decision to buy a house, it's also a big decision to walk away from that opportunity. So you really need to kind of keep track of every expenditure and understand what could potentially not come back to your pocket if you chose to walk away from the contract. Use your closing attorney, use your real estate agent, make sure you're talking through these things and you understand the legalities as well as the financial ramifications. If you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the comments, shoot us a message, but of course, like, share, and follow for future content like this. I'm Laura Richardson with Relevate, and we'll see you next time.